Okay, we're going to talk about the pen tool. It's one of the tools that we didn't talk about in Photoshop, even though it is there in Photoshop. Um, we held off on talking about it until now because it draws vector shapes, which is Illustrator's forte. And it's a big part of Illustrator because you use it a lot. We're going to use it in conjunction with a direct select tool, and we're going to be able to move our anchor points, what are called anchor points. I'll show you that in a second. And we're going to be able to adjust our shape and our lines and do a lot of fine-tune editing with those tools. In that discussion, we'll talk about Bezier curves because it kind of goes hand in hand with the pen tool. So let's start with the pen tool. I'm going to just click on the pen tool, and I'm going to go into my document area, and I'm just going to click once, and you can see I get a little blue dot. And you can see I have active guides on, and it's on by default. So I get these little green things popping up as I get close to things. That's just Illustrator trying to help us line things up, because you start having a lot of points and a lot of curves and stuff like that. Illustrator really aids you in lining things up. So if you don't like that, you can always go up to View Smart Guides and turn them off. I tend to like them. They seem to be somewhat helpful, and if I don't need them, they don't really get in the way that much. So, but this little blue dot is an anchor point, and we don't have a line yet because you need 2 anchor points to create a line. So let's click and create a second anchor point. Alright, so I have 2 anchor points. You can see I have one here and one here, and Illustrator's drawn that line for me. And that line is black because I have a stroke color of black down here. You can barely see it in my tools panel. So if you have a stroke color of white, you may be having a trouble seeing it, but just make sure your stroke color is black. And then I'm going to draw another anchor point. So now it looks like I have a triangle, but actually all I have is a line right now. This isn't a closed path. This is what we call an open path because it doesn't actually, it's not actually a shape. So we'll talk about later that if it's not a shape, it can't have a fill because this line doesn't complete yet. If we wanted to complete it, we could, and I'll show you how to do that. If we leave it open and just go to our direct select tool and say we're done, this is just a line. It's a line that we can edit. If I click on the line, you can see I get the little blue line showing me, and all the anchor points showing me how Illustrator's making this line. So if I wanted to change it, I could click on the anchor point and click and drag and move it any way I wanted, and now I have the anchor point headed that way. Okay, so that's a simple line, and that is the direct select tool and moving your anchor points. So you can click and drag and move any of those anchor points. Now, the difference between the direct select tool and the select tool is the selection tool has it's a little hard to to comprehend. This is more of a transform tool in Illustrator. So you can scale it with your selection tool, skew it, do those kind of things. You could rotate it, but you're rotating you're rotating the anchor points. You're not actually changing the makeup of the line. Which the direct select tool, you actually change the makeup of the line. You change where the anchor points are in relation to each other, and that's an important distinction. So just know that there are 2 different things, and if you're not getting what you want, usually it's because you're on the direct select tool and you get this box around it, and you can't really control each individual anchor point with the selection tool. You need the direct select tool. Okay, so that's one of the big problems in Illustrator that people run into. Okay, so we have a single line here. I'm going to move it out of the way, and let's actually create a shape as well. And I'm going to go back to my pen tool, and I'm going to click, it'll draw the line for me. I'm going to click a few times and kind of create a funky shape. Okay, now this is the trick to close this in. So right now this is an open path. You can tell the line stops there and this line stops there. You can tell it's not, Illustrator isn't connecting these 2 dots. Because you can see if it does, it draws the line differently. It's like it draws this corner differently. This is a flat edge over here. But if you notice, when I scroll over the anchor point, It says anchor because my smart guide's there, but also my pin icon changes. Instead of a just a pin, right next to it is a little plus. That means I'm going to close this shape. And you can see as soon as I click on that last anchor point, or the beginning anchor point where I started actually, you can see that it drew the line just like it did the other side. So now this is a closed shape. So again, with the direct select tool, if we wanted to change the shape and we're not happy with it, we can adjust it and make it whatever shape we want. Maybe it's an hourglass or I don't know, some other funky shape that we want. But the benefit with this, with it being closed, is now I can fill in this shape here. There's no shape to fill in here because this is open. Even though it looks like almost like a triangle, there's no fill in here. With a closed shape, you can have a fill. Okay, so that's kind of an introduction to the pen tool. We're going to talk next in the next video about the Bezier tool, using the pen tool to create Bezier curves. Excuse me.